Welcome to Rooted. I'm your host, Ruth Roach, and this is where we get real with the people who make this industry what it is today. You know how they say great hair starts at the roots? Well, it does for us too, and that's what we dig into on this show. Today, my guest is the infamous Nick Arrojo, owner of Arrojo Salons and Schools, an amazing hair care range, and the innovative American Wave. In this raw conversation, we dive into his remarkable journey through the beauty industry, his path from DJ to hairdresser, his path from the UK to NYC, and the valuable lessons he's learned along the way about resilience, mentorship, and community. Let's go. So, Nick, what initially drew you to this world of hairdressing, and how did the early experiences you had shape the stylist, the hairdresser that you are today?
You know, when I left school, I really didn't have a passion for much. And, you know, my brother was a hairdresser, and I was always into music, and I was always into fashion. I was into bands when I was a teenager. When I was an early teenager, I started DJing when I was very young. So when I came to leave school at the age of 15, that's how old I was when I left school in England, I needed a job. And the easiest and the most sexiest job for me at the time was to go and work in a hair salon. I think it was somewhat influenced by my brother, but I think it was more about, you know, meeting new people, listening to music. I went to an all-boys Catholic school, so it was fun to be around girls for the very first time. And I, fell into the industry. And within the first few weeks, I just decided that if this is what I'm going to do, I'm going to take it all the way to the bank. And I've been doing that, trying to do that ever since.
You have been doing that ever since. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. So, and you are still a DJ, right? You still?
No, not anymore. I gave up with my turntables about 20 years ago.
No.
The business kind of took over, My business strategy got better and better. And it was time for me to move away from being a DJ. Wow. I was DJing when you carried records, and carrying records at midnight or 2 o'clock in the morning is getting heavier and heavier.
Yeah.
So it wasn't so much fun.
No, that's
but I'm still listening to music every day in the salon. So that's sometimes bad music. Hopefully sometimes it's good music, because everybody's got their fingers in the
yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I know when I had my salon, that was the biggest war of all.
Mm-hmm.
And if you were with the client, you couldn't really leave and go change it, so you were stuck with it.
I'm beyond all that right now. I just, if it's a bad record, if it gets bad, I just go, can we please change it? I've turned into the old guy that used to be the person that used to talk to me to change the music. That's it.
That is hilarious. So can you share a defining moment in your career? First of all, I just want to say one thing. I remember the first time I met you.
Mm-hmm.
Was when you had just left Bumble,
Wow.
Yeah. And I met you guys, and I just remember thinking how cool you were, and the hair you do is so badass. I love it so much.
Thanks.
Always have. I've always followed you and thought you were so talented. So
that must have been with Rodney, when I was with Rodney Cutler, yes?
Yes, it was. It was right when you guys started your own thing. And
I think there's been a few defining moments for me personally. I think the first moment really was when I first fell into the industry and decided that hairdressing was something that I was going to do. And then I really focused on that. And then I ended up getting a job at Vidal Sassoon, because at the end of the day, I was like, if I'm going to do this, then I really need to do this to the best of my ability. And I needed to go and find the right place to go to work so that they could teach me. I thought education would be the key to my success. And what happened was I ended up getting a job at Vidal Sassoon, and that really was the beginning of understanding at the highest level what structure, organization, dedication. It was a real focus on the craft.
Yeah.
And for me, that was exciting. I spent 10 years there. There was a defining moment when I was there towards the end. I kind of reached the ceiling to a degree. There was still a little bit more for me to do, as in I was an artistic director, and I was traveling the world, and I was doing all those great things. But I started to look at Vidal Sassoon and realized that because Vidal or Christopher Brooker was no longer in charge, I realized that the managerial side the business was being run more by a manager, more on the numbers and less on the creative.
Hmm.
And it was at that point that I decided that maybe it was time for me to venture out. I'd also always wanted to move to New York. That was a dream of mine. And I'd asked Vidal Sassoon to transfer me to New York. And everything was really good up until I spoke to Tim Hartley, and Tim decided that I should stay in England, which, whenever you work for somebody, I think that you have to have a level of respect for them, the
Yes.
people that you work for, and I respected Tim. And I decided that I would stick it out and work for Sassoons in England and not kind of pursue my dream to move to America. But then what happened was the journey didn't go well for the following year. I kind of was promised a few things that were never really delivered. I thought that there would be more of a future for me at Vidal Sassoon, and that never materialized. So very quickly, I decided that it was time to move on, and I kind of left. I was DJing very successfully at the time, so it was the first time that I'd ever taken, and the last time that I'd ever taken any real time off. I'd been working for 10 years, and I
Wow.
worked for 10 years. I left Vidal Sassoon. I worked a 10-week notice, believe it or not.
Whoa.
I didn't even have a job to go to. And they never really asked me to stay, so it was okay, and I just left. And when I left, I was like, okay, now I'm just going to DJ, and I'm going to find the next step in my journey. And that step in the journey took about 6 months. I did end up eventually I moved to London and went to work for Weller as a creative seminar leader. So I was in charge of a lot of the education for haircutting for Weller.
Hmm.
And that was a great opportunity. And I enjoyed that job so much. Funny enough, the first week that I started at Weller, Michael Gordon from Bumble and Bumble came into the salon, into the school, and he offered me a job. And there I was getting my dream job being offered to me. But because of my kind of, I suppose, integrity, I decided that it was better to stay with Weller. They've been very good to me. I spent a couple of years working for Weller, and eventually the same thing happened. They had changes in the organization. Different leaders came into the organization. And ultimately what happened was I ended up writing to Michael to move to New York. And it's really weird how the cosmic world affects us, because the day that I wrote the letter, because in those days you wrote letters and you sent them by mail. There was no such thing as an email.
Right.
It's making us sound old.
I know.
But what happened was I wrote the letter, brought it to work, ready to post it, and Michael Gordon walked in so I could personally hand it to him.
What?
So it was such a weird kind of experience. And 6 months later, I landed in New York City, and that was the beginning of that journey.
When was that? When did you move to New York?
1994.
Okay.
I landed in October of 94. Bumble and Bumble had just launched their hair care products. I came to America and I came to Bumble, and the idea was that I was going to pursue a career more in fashion hairdressing.
Yeah.
So that was what Bumble was pretty famous for.
Yeah.
But again, as soon as I started working at Bumble, they had different ideas for me. They put me in charge of the education. So I said, okay, I'll do the education for you. Again, following what your leader says to you is kind of like, it's like they're your coach.
Right.
They're your mentor. The people that you work for is your coach or your mentor. So you have to kind of, I always listen to them. And I ended up training a lot of staff and redeveloping their whole education program and their whole education process. And it was a very exciting time. And I worked for Bumble for 3 years. But the same thing happened. I kind of outgrew the boss.
Yeah.
I just kind of I was in my early 30s, and I started to realize that maybe no one was going to give me what I wanted. Maybe I had to go out and try and find that myself. And that was the beginning of me leaving Bumble, having a partner, going to open up a new salon, which I'd never wanted to do. Never wanted to open a salon. You know,
That's
wasn't
funny.
in my, number one, I didn't think it was possible. And number two, it just wasn't a passion of mine.
Yeah.
Yeah. But ultimately, when that time came for me to leave Bumble, I looked around New York City to find if I could, because I didn't want to leave New York. So I looked around New York to see whether there was anywhere else I could work. There was nobody that I wanted to work for. So it kind of made the decision that it was time to try and see if I can make that journey on my own. Fast forward, 27 years, I've been through a partnership business. I opened up my own business September the 11th. And,
It was on September 11th?
when I opened up Arrojo Studio, when I left I left Bumble and I opened Arrojo Cutler
Yeah.
in 1997.
Yep.
And in September the 4th, 2001, we had a pretty difficult breakup. I wasn't allowed to work in Midtown. I wasn't allowed to take any team members. I was ostracized out of the business. I wanted a new future. So I had to move out of the zone of Midtown. So I came downtown, and luckily, because of my relationship with Aveda, they had a small academy salon at the front of their institute, and Horst enabled me to take that space so that I could kind of rebuild and rebegin. And that was
I
September.
remember that. I remember when you were there. 'Cause I used to walk by there all the time.
Yeah. September the 4th, and then 1 week later was September the 11th, and then the world changed.
I was teaching my first class on my own after I left Redken.
Right? Yeah, because
On
you had a salon.
September
Yeah, you was down in Tribeca too, weren't you?
I wasn't even down there yet. I was just renting a photo studio, and yeah, my very first class after leaving the big contract at Redken and doing all that stuff. And
Right.
then that happened.
Well, these
Interesting.
things, we realize in life nothing stays the same.
Yep.
Everything changes
Yeah.
and constantly changes. So you've got to be prepared for all of those changes that come your way along your journey.
Yeah. So what was there ever a time, I mean, God, there must have been in all this that you wanted to quit? Just like go back to DJing or something?
No, there was never a time that I wanted to quit. DJing, really, I never wanted to be a full-time DJ. I was successful DJing, but I just didn't feel like staying up till 4 o'clock in the morning was a career that I wanted to pursue.
Yeah.
For me. I always enjoyed what I did. I wanted a daytime job, and I loved doing hair, and I loved making people feel good, and I loved the creative aspect of, being a salon stylist. I love the aspect of being able to do my own photo shoots and be in control of certain elements of my career. And that's what I really enjoyed. I like the camaraderie. I like the teamwork. I like the humor, the fun, the excitement. I like business. I like success. So I never really wanted to quit. And if I were to quit, what would I do? Yeah, this is kind of my life kind of journey. So, you just kind of stay focused and keep going. And, eventually good times will come, even if it's not so good. There were moments there when I felt very vulnerable, the same way that I feel today. Moments of vulnerability where you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. You don't know, whether things are going to go the right direction. You can have dreams and you can have hope. But, if you don't work hard, you've got no chance. So I just keep trying to work hard and hope that good things will transpire.
Awesome. Thanks. I needed to hear that today.
Yeah. I still believe in the power of, intention.
Yeah.
When I look and I think back at my career, I say, what got me here? How did I create everything that I created? When I came to America, I had $1,500. It's probably the most money I'd ever had in my pocket.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it wasn't a lot of money. Yeah. And I didn't know anybody here. And when I think about the things that I've accomplished, I say there's definitely a lot of luck in there. And I say there's a lot of perseverance. And I say that, the universe has certainly enabled me to do some of the things that I've managed to accomplish, because the universe is the universe and it somewhat kind of takes care of you. And I do believe that, and I still believe that, and I hold on to that. And I suppose that is, something that keeps me going.
Yeah. Cool. I love that philosophy of, flow, right?
Yeah, that's it. You got to keep going.
Yeah. So you've made a huge impact on our industry. What would you say your biggest contributions are? You kind of have hit on, your path and stuff, but what are you most proud of?
Big question. You don't really think about those things too much. There was many times that I would be in my salon at the middle of the night, when everyone's gone and I'm leaving and I'm turning the lights off, that I would be so kind of felt accomplished that I'd managed to create something. Yeah. And then I kept on creating so much stuff, where I went from a salon, I got this opportunity to be on television that propelled me forward.
That was so cool.
That was a lot of fun. It was great to be famous for a few years.
Yeah.
At the time, everywhere you went, everybody knew who you was. So I got to feel the fame, which was fabulous. I'm happy it's not there now, because I like both sides of it.
Yeah.
Fun to have for a bit, but it's
that was What Not to Wear, right?
What Not to Wear. We did 7 seasons. I was on television for probably about 10, 11 years. It was a regular gig, and it was a hit show, so it really propelled me forward. Then building my business, and I've always kind of said that I need to invest in myself, so I invested in myself. I invested in opening up a second school. I invested in opening up a location in Brooklyn. I invested in a lot of things. What I was proud of the most is all of the people, I suppose, that have worked with me, people that I've been with me, that I've trained, and I train people at Sassoons. I train people at Weller, of course, having employees and paying people and doing all of those, having that great journey, has been really, I feel accomplished in that regards. But I don't spend too much time, patting myself on the back, and unfortunately, since the pandemic, there's not been any time to feel like you've accomplished. Since the pandemic, that's just been survival. Yeah. Most salons, big salons, independent salons, most of them in this city did not survive. Mm-hmm. A lot of celebrity salons didn't survive, and just trying to survive has been the last 5 years of my journey, trying to navigate through, and when the world stopped during the pandemic, the bills didn't. The bills kept coming. Yeah. So unfortunately, we've had to deal with a lot of challenge in the past 5 years. I suppose probably the past 5 years has probably been the best, because even though it's been painful, difficult, challenging, not productive financially, I've learned to enjoy the pain. If you can believe that. Yeah. I learned to enjoy the pain. It's a nice saying. Yeah.
Wow.
And the pain of being able to be not in control, not knowing what the future is going to look like, struggling through the fact that your business has been decimated. It's a bit like, I suppose, the people in California,
Right.
There's a new thing on the news now with the plane crash. So but those people that lost their homes, they're going to be living with that disaster for their entire life. So it's the same thing when we go. I experienced it a little bit with September the 11th. September the 11th was devastating. But, a year later, we were still dealing with September the 11th if you lived in New York City. But if you didn't live in New York City, you was on to the next thing.
Yeah.
So I'm still dealing with the fallout from the pandemic and the shutdown and the lockdown and the change. So that's probably been the toughest, the most challenging, and maybe the biggest lesson I've ever had in my entire life.
Wow.
And hopefully we'll continue to succeed and survive and push through. But I don't base my success on material things anymore. It's not like, I've got 1 salon or 2 salons or 50 hairdressers or this many clients and this and that and the other. I don't look at any of those things. what I really look at is, I feel like I've accomplished a lot. So I'm very thankful for the journey. If as my business has struggled, having to close two locations, going through that pain, it's made me stronger, made me tougher, and I think it's made me wiser. So whatever the journey is that comes my way, I think I'll be better prepared and more equipped to
Yeah.
manage.
Yeah. All that wisdom, right? What advice would you give someone just starting out in their hairdressing career?
It's the same advice that I've been given for 100 years. It feels like 100 years, I always say you've got to know where you want to be. You
Yes.
have to have a destiny. It doesn't have to be the final destination, but what are you doing today and where are you going? So that's, I can say it simply: dream big, work hard.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever you want, you can have. And as long as you know what you want, you know what you're working towards.
Yeah.
So I always say have a 5-year plan, have a 3-year plan, have a 1-year plan. The 5-year plan is the bigger dream. The 3-year plan is maybe the attainable success. And the 1-year plan, you've got 3 1-year plans to get to the attainable success. So when I wake up every day, I want to make a change in my universe so that the world's a little bit different tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
So every day I wake up with an intention to try and do something to change. It's not, my life never, ever stays the same.
Yeah.
I have ideas. Ideas are easy. Execution is hard. Yeah, you know it. Yeah. So the reality is, just know where you want to go. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I wanted to be a successful stylist. So the first thing I needed to do was know how to do hair.
Yeah.
After I learned how to do hair, then I was like, okay, now I want to be successful. So I needed to know how to build a clientele.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always looked at the most successful people in the salon to give me the ideas.
Yeah.
If they're busy, what are they doing? And usually it's never been, as a salon hairdresser, it's never been, it's not just about your skill. It's about your communication.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And in today's universe, you can come out of school and you can be successful out of the gate. If you've got good charisma, if you're professional in your attitude, on time, looking good, smelling good, with intention, learning from your mistakes, listening, surrounding yourself, being in positive arenas as opposed to being in negative arenas, because there's always negativity. I have a school, so my daily life is I run a school. I run my own product line, 2 product lines actually, because I have American Wave and Arrojo product. And then I run a salon. I'm the manager. There's no manager anymore.
Yeah.
Used to have a big infrastructure. Wow. There's no infrastructure in that capacity anymore because the world changed 5 years ago. I cut clients. Mm-hmm. I teach. I train. I'm busy. And I'm a worker builder. Yeah.
You're what?
I'm a worker builder. I like to build things. I like to work. I like to learn. I like to, stay focused. And, the advice that I would give to a young person or anybody really is, where do you want to be? Yeah. I mean, I'll be honest with you. I always had a plan. Yeah. I always had a plan. And I said to myself, when I get older in life, maybe that will be when I go from being behind the chair to being more into doing fashion, photo shoots, editorial. Yeah. That candle is still alive. Uh-huh. Yeah. That candle is still alive. Yeah. Because age is just a number. I've been in this business for 40 years and I feel more youthful now and more passionate now than I've ever felt. I am striving. There was a time where things were going so well for me that I was making more money than I could ever imagine. And I tell everybody, if you do the right things, the money will follow. Mm-hmm. I was very fortunate that I managed to generate a lot of financial reward with all of my hard work.
Yes.
Today, I don't make money.
Yeah.
We've not made money in 5 years because I'm ultimately I'm in survival trying to keep
Yeah.
this business going.
Yeah.
So you can make a lot of money. And, I have children. I provide for my children. I have a wife. I'm a provider, and I enjoy being that. I like taking care of, that. It's important to me. Everybody comes before me in my business.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm the last person. Whatever's left comes to me. So when it's good, a lot comes to me, and when it's bad, nothing comes to me. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've learned to live on very little. I've learned to kind of navigate through. I'm still a big dreamer. I have a great imagination. This industry has 1,000 doors. You can go.
Yes.
Sometimes you go through one door and you realize you're in the wrong place. You need to go out that door and get to the next door.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of journey left for me.
Yeah.
I see sometimes people retiring. It's not on my head. It's not on my.
What the hell is that word anyway?
Yeah, I think I'll be doing hair. I'll be involved in hair for the longest period of time. I'm really getting to understand the beauty industry now. I'm getting to understand. I was just in Los Angeles yesterday at Beauty Independent, which is a brand that really helps to educate young founders, entrepreneurs. So I'm learning lots and lots of new stuff, but I'm still creating new stuff. I'm still teaching. I've got my digital training program that I do, which is really exciting. Helping people get to be better at doing hair is my reward. If I can, it's like yourself, if I can help somebody get better at doing hair, that's my reward. Yeah. And I can tell you, sometimes you don't get the thanks from people that you've worked with in the past. I don't know why that is. Yeah. Sometimes they kind of, they go on to success and you're happy for them and their success, but sometimes they don't actually, some people don't give it back to you, but that's okay. I'm just always learning and I'm always trying my best to do the best thing. And I'm not perfect. There's plenty of mistakes along the way. And, it's easy to talk about yourself and make yourself sound great. But, some days you're not great. Some days are difficult. Some days you're stressed. Some days you're under pressure. Some days you're vulnerable. Some days you're mad. Some days you're angry. Some days you're exhausted, but just trying to stay positive and have purpose. I think that when the pandemic came, I never took any time off. Mm-hmm. Everybody stopped working apart from me. And I was thankful for that. Yeah. And the reason why I didn't stop working is because I was shipping out my products to clients.
Oh, yeah.
And that was a difficult job when you're shipping. I mean, it might sound good when you're getting orders of $10,000 and you got to ship out $10,000 worth of hair care products. And
that's a lot of product.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
And you got to package product and you got to individually do it, and you're doing things that you've never done before, But I actually put so much love into packing a box, and I put my product in that box with a tissue, bubble wrapped. And even though I knew that I was losing thousands of dollars every day, tens of thousands of dollars every day, I say this, my rent was $7,000 a day.
A day?
A day.
Oh,
so every week I was $50,000 in debt. By the end of a month, I was $200,000 in debt. Oh, by the time I got to reopen, I was $1 million in debt.
Oh,
and when we reopened, I just invested in my Tribeca location, which was my pride and joy. Mm-hmm. Yeah, a 75-seat theater. I just really, I put $600,000, which is a lot of money, to renovate Tribeca. Yeah. And it was just finished. And I never worked in there ever again. And when I walked away from that lease, I was $12 million in debt.
Oh my God.
So I was sitting there going, I'm $12 million in debt. I'm never going to survive. Mm-hmm. And when you have a school, you have a school, and if you have a school and you take federal support, as in you can provide loans, you have to balance your books really, really well. Yeah. Because the government will not borrow money, will not allow you as an institution if you are not a solid business. Yeah. So having this massive debt on my book
Ugh.
was an absolute disaster.
Yeah.
And I had that debt on my books all year.
Yeah.
And by the time it got to December the 31st, if I still had that debt on my books, then I would not be in business today. And
Holy.
as it happened, the landlord decided to take me to court in November. Thanksgiving, my Thanksgiving gift was that I was going to court because I broke a lease.
Yeah.
I owed them $1.7 million in
Yeah.
unpaid rent, and I owed them $12 million because I had a lease for 12 years.
Oh
So
my
I
God.
was in a real pickle, and I had no one to turn to because the people that had mentored me, people like Jerry Gordon, he passed away,
Yeah.
Gordon Nelson, he'd passed away, and Horst Reckelbecker, these would be the people that would help me when I had challenges in my journey.
Yes.
They were not on this planet, so there really wasn't anyone to help me. And again, I think just like that cosmic thing that I talked about, when that letter came through and said, we're taking you to court, I saw that as an opportunity to negotiate with a landlord. And I don't know how it happened, but I managed to obviously pay them a
Mhm.
substantial amount of money,
Mhm.
but nowhere near the amount of money that was on my books as
Yeah.
a debt. So I managed to clear all of that debt,
Wow.
which gave me a chance. And I literally had 4 weeks to do it. And I managed to do it. So
Oh my
I
God.
learned a lesson.
That's inspiring. That is really, really inspiring. And
So
look,
I think that the message for people, if they're listening, is no matter how bad and how terrible it may be, tomorrow's another day, and something else might happen.
yeah.
And as long as you're in the game, you're in the game.
Yeah.
And you'll always be in the game. And if ultimately things collapse and crash around you, as long as you've got your health and your spirit, don't let things break you. Just keep going. And I'm just that kind of person. I keep going. That's why I got off a plane this morning and I'm into work doing clients, and that's why I'm doing the podcast. I love
Yeah.
and it's difficult to get a hold of me because I'm managing so much. I've never
Yeah, you
worked
are.
this hard in my life for so little.
Yeah.
But I'm enjoying the journey.
Oh, good. Awesome. Wow. What a great, I'm so glad that I'm talking to you.
Oh, good.
Um,
Good.
So what about, a lot of people say they want to do editorial, they want to get into fashion and all that stuff. What would you tell someone who wants to do that?
I would tell them that, become a hair junkie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, become a hair junkie. Wake up every day, go to the studio, go to your studio. It can be your bedroom. You don't need
Yeah.
a studio. Your bedroom's your studio.
Yeah.
The hallway's your studio. Yeah. I would say every day get up and start playing with your hands. I mean, we have these devices now that are like, this is like the universe. I mean, we never had this when I was a young hairdresser.
No, I know. Yeah,
I can
same.
take pictures, I can make videos, I can photograph my work, I can look at it, I can play, I can experiment. I would say that's what you have to do every day. Number two, I would say you've got to get out there to help people.
Yeah.
You've got to be a little bit assertive, and you've got to be nice.
Yeah.
You've got to be humble, and you've got to be able to, people like, I love people that will do things without me having to ask to
Oh
get
my God.
them.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Just now in my salon, somebody passed me, a hairdresser who's a young hairdresser, passed me a mirror that was covered in fingerprints. And I'm shocked
Mm-hmm.
because it's the basics.
Yeah.
It's like, where are we going when we don't think like that? We've got to
Yeah.
think about, it's like I used to think, and I still think, I want to think about what people need before they know what they need. When
Yeah.
I was an apprentice, I used to know what that person wanted. If the brush was there, it was clean. The product was there, it was ready to go. The water spray bottle was there, it was ready to go. At the end of the day, when it was time to leave, I didn't leave until it was time, when it was finished.
Yeah.
It wasn't about how much money I was making. It wasn't about being on the clock.
Yeah.
Today, we have a different mentality and a different mindset. I don't look at my career as a job. I look at my career as a career, and this is my journey. My career is my journey. So whatever it takes to do is whatever it takes to do, and I enjoy that.
Yeah.
And so as a young person getting into the fashion industry, it's highly competitive. You better be really good with your hands. Try and find a really great person to assist.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, really try your best to find somebody good, which means that you have to work with a lot of people because you don't know who's really good. And you
Yeah.
won't know who you fit. There's many characters in this universe that I wouldn't be able to work with.
Yeah.
You know? And in that world of fashion is a lot of ego. And there has to be ego because they are the people that are determining what they're the real true influences.
Yeah.
And influences, the word is like, there's lots of different influences today.
Yes.
Yeah. But when you're talking about influencing fashion, you know, the greats when I was a young hairdresser were, Orlando Peter,
Yeah.
Didier Malige. These were people that I followed. I followed their work. I would read the magazines. I would get Vogue magazine. I would get Italian Vogue. I would read the credits.
Yeah.
I did an amazing program 7 or 8 years ago with Hair Mastered when they first launched that with Sam McKnight.
Yeah.
So there's a lot out there.
Yes.
It's collaboration. Find your tribe. Find your people. Get to work every day. Don't let anyone take your dream away. And the cosmic universe will take after care of the people that work the hardest. Someone like Peter Gray, he was a Vardra at my salon when I was the art director. Peter Gray came to Manchester and he did a 6-month training program under myself. He became a stylist. I said to him, you want to become the busiest stylist in the salon? He said, I want to do editorial. I said, yes, I know you do, but let's get you busy. Let's hone your craft.
Yeah.
But Peter Gray is a perfect example of, someone that's kind of fulfilled his passion, his dream, and he's gone from grassroots, being very humble, very kind, very generous with his time and his creativity, and he's become, one of the best session stylists in the world, which is fantastic. And there's lots of them. And there's lots of room for everybody. We don't know what tomorrow's going to bring, but what we do know is what we're going to do today.
Yep. That's beautiful. Thank you. Gosh, we could end right there. But I have one more question.
Okay.
We have time?
Yeah, I got 6 minutes, and then my next client's going to be in my chair.
You might not. We don't have to use this question, but here it is.
Okay.
If your life as a hairdresser were a movie, and it's been quite the life, what would the title be, and who would play you, or who would play you?
Wow.
Either or. Yeah. And we don't have to use this one.
Well, I tell you what, one of my favorite movies, which I think everybody should watch, which I think is just a beautiful movie, is a movie called Being There with Peter Sellers. I don't know if you've ever saw it.
Oh my God, I haven't thought about him in so long.
Yeah, Peter Sellers, and it's a movie, and he's lived in his house, and he's the gardener, and he's the gardener for a house, and he's never left the house. And the start of the movie is that the guy that he worked for dies, and the house gets sold for the very first time in his life, and he's a grown man. He leaves. And he leaves the house, and he doesn't know what's out there. And he leaves the house, and he gets hit by a woman in a car.
Yeah.
And she takes him in the car, and it's Shirley MacLaine. And she takes him to her house because, he's a very gentle man. And she's married or connected to the president. And all of a sudden, the gardener becomes like the inspiration for the president. And it's quite an amazing movie because he's so naive that everything is very pure.
Yeah.
So I don't know that that's necessarily, kind of answering the question properly, but I do think that the level of wisdom I would like to, I've always been a person that's liked to soak up as much wisdom as possible. I look at situations, all my mentors. My mentor today is a gentleman by the name of Franco. He's probably 70s, he's in his late 70s. He's an Italian hairdresser. He just celebrated 55 years in the industry.
Wow.
He's owned 2 salons in Westchester. He's just a gentle man. And, the same that was with Jerry Gordon was exactly the same. Gordon Nelson was exactly the same. Becker was exactly the same. They have these similar elements. I've always thoroughly, enjoyed soaking up knowledge and wisdom and talking to people that have a better depth of knowledge in the universe than I have.
Yeah.
Because with life experience comes a lot of wisdom, and I'm more that person that likes to soak it up so that I can pass it on. Yeah. I'm just passing through. Ruth, you're passing through. I'm passing through. Chauncey Gardner, Mr. Peter Sellers was passing through, just trying to share a little bit of wisdom and enjoying themselves, on the way. And I think one of the best things that ever, one of the things that I think, to reflect as I talk about these characters that have been, pivotal in my life was, I remember Jerry and Gordon, when Gordon, was ill and he had pancreatic cancer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I remember connecting Jerry and Gordon together.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that was just such a beautiful, because you wake up with it, you come into the world with nothing and you leave the world with nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you just, and it's just you, and you're lost in your own thoughts, and, you do the best you can. But at the end of the day, when you're lying there in bed, you're thinking about yourself, and you're thinking about, what you've done or how you've behaved or where you've been or what you're going to do tomorrow. And I think that one of the best things that ever happened was the fact that Jerry, they're all Gordons, funnily enough. Jerry and Gordon got to share some time together towards the end of their journey. And I was very thankful that I managed to kind of connect those two great people. And that really filled me with a lot of joy because they supported each other.
Cool. Well, Nick, as I thought I would want to say at the end of this is we need to do another one. Not enough time. But thank you so much for doing this today. It was great. Selfishly, I got to know a lot more about you, so thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thanks for doing what you're doing. You're such an inspiration. Keep it up.
Well, you know what? It's a pleasure to know you. It's been a pleasure to see your success. I wish you nothing but more success. You're definitely one of the greats in our industry, and you inspire a lot of people, and you give back to the community and to the industry with nothing but love. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
I wish you lots of luck with your podcast and continue on your journey, and maybe one day soon we'll get together, maybe have a glass of wine.
Yes.